Who appointed the Batman?
We did. All of us who stood by and let scum take control of our city.
But this is a democracy, Harvey.
When their enemies were at the gates, the Romans would suspend democracy and appoint one man to protect the city. And it wasn't considered an honor, it was considered a public service.
Harvey, the last man that they appointed to protect the Republic was named Caesar, and he never gave up his power.
Okay, fine. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Without a doubt, Batman is one of the most infamous and well thought out heroes in the comic book industry. He first appeared in Detective Comics number 27 as a morally grey superhero that was pretty violent for his time, and he has since evolved from a ruthless killer into a vigilante with a moral code and a strong sense of justice. Since his creation, he has become one of the most commercially successful superheroes and has been listed as the greatest comic book superhero ever created. But more infamous than Batman is without a doubt his rogues gallery. Since Batman's parents were murdered during a robbery, he lives by the rule of never taking another man's life, which leaves most of his foes live to see another day, time and time again. Batman's gallery of villains goes from simple mobsters to disfigured politicians and colourfully vibrant characters that live to grab Batman and the people's attention. However, only one stands out among them as a truly formidable foe that challenges Batman's philosophies in a way that captivates comic book readers and makes them question the hero that they've looked up to for years. And of course, the villain that I'm talking about is none other than Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy made her first appearance in Batman 181 as a seductress that turns Batman against his sidekick, Robin, which of course shows both Batman and Robin in a strange light that has never been seen before. Usually the titular duo are responsible heroes, saving the day from crazy madmen and alien Batman, and the two could never be broken apart, yet here they are, fighting against each other due to Poison Ivy's clever deception. It really makes the reader question Batman's legitimacy as a hero, which nobody would normally have any doubts about. I mean, it's Batman, right? He can't do no wrong. And that's where Poison Ivy comes in, to make you actually think about the legitimacy of not just Batman, but the police force and the government itself for allowing Batman to abuse his power as a force of justice. Poison Ivy was inspired by the appearance of Betty Page and a short story called Rappaccini's Daughter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which follows the story of a young maiden by the name of Beatrice, who tends to a garden of poisonous plants grown by her scientist father, Dr. Giacomo Rappaccini. As the story goes on, Dr. Giacomo notices his daughter's infatuation with the poisonous plants and a strangely intimate relationship she shares with them, and he notices the withering of fresh flowers and the deaths of small insects due to her absolutely smelly breath. At some point during the story, Beatrice meets up with a young student named Giovanni Guasconti, who has fallen madly in love with her. He ignores his professor, who claims Rappaccini is a devious man, who should be avoided at all costs. Giovanni discovers that Beatrice has become more poisonous after spending so much time with the poisonous plants in the garden, to which Beatrice begs Giovanni to look past her poisonous abilities and love her for who she is. Giovanni expressed doubt, but stayed with her anyway, to which he suffered the consequence of becoming poisonous as well. He meets up with his professor to create an antidote for both him and Beatrice. After giving Beatrice the antidote, it instead kills her rather than cure her of her poison. Now obviously the main takeaway from the story that the Batman writers took as inspiration was the poisonous abilities of Beatrice. But let's look at the inspiration for Poison Ivy's appearance, which was, as mentioned before, Betty Page. Betty Page was a well-known American model, known for her pin-up photos, marking her as the queen of pin-ups. Her armpit-length black hair and bangs were iconic to many, and she has been an influence to artists ever since. The founder of Playboy, Hugh Hefner, had this to say about her: "I think that she was a remarkable lady, an iconic figure in pop culture who influenced sexuality, taste in fashion, someone who had a tremendous impact on our society." I find it interesting that Hefner references the idea that Betty Page had an influence on many people's sexual identity, which seems to be very familiar to how Poison Ivy influenced Batman and Robin's horniness. It seems that the writers took more than the appearance for their inspiration, and also took Betty Page's influence on the American public. Perhaps it is commentary on how we, as humans, can be so influenced by other people with a higher social status that we may not even know much about. In my eyes, this is very similar to how people look up to Batman, and are inspired enough by him to dress up as him and start a movement in his name without actually knowing who he is, without knowing his true identity, which is that of a man that maybe they wouldn't appreciate as much. In 1959, Page converted to evangelical Christianity and studied at Bible colleges in the hopes of becoming a missionary. She got back with her first ex-husband and eventually was arrested for punching and verbally abusing him. She was then later diagnosed with acute schizophrenia and spent 6 months in Patton State Hospital. Later on, she was arrested for assaulting another landlord, and she pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity to attempted murder. It just goes to show that the people who are the most influential aren't always who you think they are, which not only fits in with Batman, but it also fits in with Poison Ivy. Batman and Robin are made to fight each other over Ivy. They're fighting because they want to be the one that puts their dick between her lips. But what they don't know is that Poison Ivy is poisonous to the touch. One kiss with her will kill you. And this is all part of her plan to turn the dynamic duo against each other and kill one of them with her poisonous kiss. Luckily, the duo realised what's happening and managed to defeat her. It doesn't mean she didn't come close to winning though, which is a scary idea to many fans of the series. But enough talk about the history of her creation. Let's talk about her backstory. Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley was a Gotham City botanist that studied advanced botanical biochemistry under Dr. Jason Woodrue. As a shy girl at the time, she was taken advantage of by her professor, who injected her with poisons and toxins as a social experiment, which caused her to be sent to the hospital. She nearly dies twice because of this incident. The poisonings drove her insane and caused her to have violent mood swings, and after the incident, she drops out of school and begins her criminal career by threatening to release deadly spores into the streets of Gotham, to which Batman stops her and she is sent to Arkham Asylum. During Batman's investigation, he learns that her parents have been dead the whole time and that she isn't all that different from Batman himself. Two people that don't trust, and they both have trust issues themselves. They seem to be both one in the same. Poison Ivy challenges Batman on the level of responsibility and commitment. She brings up the idea that Batman is not suited to be the protector of Gotham City, similar to how Dr. Jason Woodrue was not suited to be a professor. The people we idolise and fall in love with aren't always who they say they are. Is Batman really a hero? Is Poison Ivy right for committing awful acts to shed a new light on Batman? Does DC is support the bisexual? These are questions readers and viewers will ask themselves whenever Batman and Poison Ivy come face to face. Poison Ivy has only been portrayed in cinema once, in the film Batman and Robin, which is a complete retelling of Batman 181, with additional elements such as Mr. Freeze. Ivy was remarkably portrayed by Uma Thurman. Her performance was absolutely terrifying for audiences at the time, as nobody could expect a woman as attractive as her to be so deadly and violently malicious. As a result, the film was a success with critics and audiences alike. Nobody has been able to accurately portray Poison Ivy, as well as Uma Thurman, who is Lady One from the House That Jack Built movie, and she was in the Among Us movie. It's such a shame that we'll most likely never see Poison Ivy on the big screen again, as she is such a great nemesis for Batman. The villains Batman faces in movies nowadays never really challenge Batman, or the audience's perception about what it means to be a protector, to be responsible for a whole city, to be a hero that others can look up to, without a single speck of doubt that you aren't qualified for the job. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'd like to thank my patrons. Okay, they don't exist.